Welcome to Sustainability's Leading Voices. This week, I'm joined by Chris Gale, who was a key player in Ben & Jerry's social mission before taking up his current role as Head of Social Impact at eBay. Chris joins me to discuss the future of the retail landscape and sustainability. Welcome, Chris. Can you tell us how eBay is working to amplify its impact?
So, of course, eBay's business model has always been about extending the life of products. When we started 25 years ago, that was at the heart of the business model, and that's continued to be the case. And I think with the growth of the circular economy particularly, we're seeing more and more opportunities to extend the life of products through refurb and pre-loved and those types of business models. So that's still at the heart of the eBay business model, but we also have a very big purpose around economic opportunity for all, and we have a range of programs with that at the heart, supporting social enterprises, refugee entrepreneurs, Black women entrepreneurs, and also young people interested in starting their own sneaker businesses.
You've just talked us through eBay's capacity to support refurbishment, resale, pre-loved, some of the key components of the circular economy. In your opinion, what does the future of sustainable retail look like?
I think one word for me is circular. That is definitely going to be at the heart of what retail looks like in the future. We're already seeing, brands come to us and looking at how can they work with eBay to be a solution for them, particularly for in pre-loved fashion, for example. So we have brands that are looking, how can they do resale? How can they do pre-loved? And we're linking brands up with third-party solutions that we know that will do clean, repair, and relist, and then selling their products on eBay. Given we've got that huge buyer base already to go that are looking for pre-loved fashion, for example.
Obviously, eBay is in a unique position because of the business model. What can other retailers do to start moving towards a more sustainable future?
It's really about embracing circular principles is going to be at the heart of how do we transform the retail environment. We need to look upstream and downstream. Obviously, from an eBay perspective, a lot of what we're able to do is about extending the life of products, but more needs to be done and is happening, I think, upstream around the design principles and ensuring that circularity is designed upfront in retail.
We know that retail has a huge impact on the environment. What could we achieve if we make that circular transition?
I know there's an EMF report that shows that 45% of the GHG reduction that we need is going to come from a circular economy. So I think that has to be at the heart of what retail looks like in the future. We can see it that brands are still grappling with this a little bit, and I think excitingly for eBay, that is at the heart of our business model and always has been, and we can be that solution for businesses that are interested in how do they grow pre-loved refurb, for example.
A key part of facilitating that transition is going to be uplifting and supporting the businesses that are producing in responsible ways or already operating within the circular economy. How is eBay supporting social enterprises and ethical businesses?
eBay's got this very big purpose around economic opportunity for all, and when we looked at that a few years ago within my team, was really how do we take that mission and make it really practical and proactive in terms of what we're doing in the UK. And where we ended up was saying this is all about supporting underserved communities in the UK. And then it was a very natural progression from that to saying, well, we really want to provide a platform for social enterprises and fair trade businesses. And we started a program called eBay for Change a couple of years ago, which is all about bringing social enterprises onto the platform, providing them with a package of support, which is one-to-one coaching is at the heart of that. So you get someone that starts to know your business and starts to know you, gets you to try some stuff and challenge you over a 3-month period. And then obviously 0 fees for 12 months. And then also sort of peer-to-peer learning that we see for social enterprises. So we've worked with about 330 social enterprises right now. We have a hub on ebay.co.uk called eBay for Change. So if you search on ebay.co.uk for eBay for Change, you will find it. It's all about connecting social enterprises, so businesses that exist to deliver impact on a particular social or environmental issue with a more mainstream consumer base.
Achieving audience cut-through is really, really difficult for small businesses. What other challenges do you see social enterprises facing in the retail landscape?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for social enterprises is trying to access more of a mainstream consumer base, and that's exactly what we can offer them. But at the same time, it's really challenging to run a social enterprise, so to run a business as well as, it's to some extent running an NGO at the same time. So trying to develop the skills that you need to run not just a high street shop, but an e-commerce shop, which is quite different, can be a real challenge in amongst all of that. And that's what we hope that our program is delivering.
You've talked about bringing some of these business practices to a mainstream audience and also addressing the challenges that social enterprises have to operate as a commercial business and almost like an NGO or a charity at the same time. How do we navigate the consumer attitude behaviour gap in that context?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge remains consumer perception. I think that's changing a little bit, but in the past, pre-loved resale was seen as second best, and for certain demographics, maybe wouldn't touch it. It was sort of associated with a smell. I think that is changing, but it's changing slowly. So I think that's the first one. We've had our partnership that maybe we'll go on to talk about around Love Island, which was really around trying to change that narrative around pre-loved fashion in particular. But also alongside that, to really drive that consumer choice, I think consumers need to understand what they're buying, and I think things like grading are particularly important, so that you feel comfortable you're buying what is being listed. And then the final one is really around capacity in the system. So, resale requires people to clean, repair, relist. And I think for certain products, particularly at lower price points, that can present a challenge because the economics don't quite add up yet. But I think as you're starting to see the sector move towards, again, more circular principles in design, that will become easier as well. But I think it's those three things are really linked.
You've talked there about the perceptions and the practicalities of mainstreaming circular retail models. What's the next step? What can we do to get ethical and sustainable products front and centre?
I think this is a really big question. I think one of the things is changing just generally our perception of what value means. And I think from a consumer point of view, value for a long time has meant cheap. But I think we hopefully are moving towards a place in which we look at value more holistically and look at the impact of that product that we're buying. I think social enterprises are a great example here, where they're really trying to talk about the impact that their product is having at the same time as you're able to get a premium product or a great product in your hands. And I think we need more of that. We need more transparency in this space around what's involved in making that product particularly. And I think consumer audiences are becoming more savvy, and it's almost trite that young people are more engaged and aware of what's happening from a retail point of view, and will expect these standards. So I think that perception is probably the biggest one that we need to shift.
It's really interesting that you mention how younger generations are naturally more open and responsive to these sustainable practices. A really practical example of that working was eBay's partnership with Love Island. Can you talk to us about the impact that had?
On Love Island, it's been a huge success. I think the plan for Love Island was always about how do we mainstream pre-loved fashion and unlock a conversation and a narrative, maybe with a demographic that isn't always talking about pre-loved fashion, and it might not be at the heart of the conversation. So I think it definitely did that. I think the coverage for it was almost surprising, which shows that there's an appetite for this conversation out there. We saw a big change as well. So we saw some significant impact. So one of the stats was that we saw searches for pre-loved fashion on the marketplace increase by more than 1,400% in Series 9 compared to Series 8. And we've also seen one pre-loved item sold every second on eBay over the last year. So stat-wise, really interesting. I think from my point of view, working in the impact sustainability space, really interested about the conversation and the narrative that it started to unlock. And now the challenge is How do we build on that, and how do we continue to see that conversation being had publicly?
The Love Island campaign was probably one of the most visible behaviour change campaigns that we've seen for decades. It really made inroads in terms of establishing circular economy principles with different audiences and different demographics by tapping into the narratives that they need to hear to actually change their purchasing behaviour. Talk to us about how reaching different audiences helps to create behaviour change.
Yeah, I think Love Island was a great example of us bringing the conversation mainstream and trying to reframe a narrative which is often about sustainability equals cost and comes with a premium attached to it. Whereas I think what Love Island did was bring that conversation into the mainstream, but particularly with a demographic that maybe weren't engaging quite as much in pre-love fashion, for example. And it made it aspirational because it brought to life the fact that you can get a unique product, you can get something that really tells your story. And I think that's what we need more and more, is that sustainability should be aspirational, not just for a middle class group that are engaging in it from an organic point of view. It's about how do you target different demographics with different messages and different narratives that appeal to them.
We know that there's a perception that a sustainable lifestyle is a more expensive lifestyle. What's the role of retailers in encouraging and facilitating access so that everybody can buy better?
Yeah, I think firstly, it's not up to businesses maybe to narrow the choice that's out there for consumers. I think presenting choice and presenting transparency around that choice is probably the key thing, so that consumers can make up their mind themselves. And then I think from an eBay perspective, one of the things that we always talk about is there's this perceived sustainability premium a little bit. And I think the growth of pre-loved and the growth of refurb really provides an opportunity to narrow that gap, or that perceived gap, in terms of buying sustainable and buying with, buying cheaply or from a financial point of view. So that's maybe the core eBay offer to the world, is really about narrowing that gap between what's sustainable and what's buying with value.
Driving behaviour change through those narratives is something that personally you're very familiar with, being ex-Ben & Jerry's. Can you talk us through your experience of driving social impact in the fast-moving consumer goods space?
Yeah, so prior to the 3 years I've had at eBay, I was just over 5 years at Ben & Jerry's, and my role was really focused on corporate activism. So we had, I was looking after our activism managers across Europe. So across our 6 or 7 biggest markets, we had someone that was dedicated to really driving engagement on social justice issues, and for us was really focused on refugee and asylum rights. And the model is really, you've got loads of people that love cookie dough. Let's talk to them about something that really matters and engage them in that and get them to do something. So I love doing that work. You can be really creative because, no one makes a connection between ice cream and refugee rights, but we were able to do that. And also we developed a program of work when I was at Ben & Jerry's, which was called the Ice Academy. The name of it's actually changed now, but was a program supporting refugee entrepreneurs, working with an organization called Turn, who we at eBay have just started to work with as well. And the program there was really combining working in our scoop shops, so employment with early stage entrepreneurs, so they could work on their business idea with Turn and then get that 20 hours, 25 hours plus income alongside that. And then I've continued that relationship as I've gone to eBay, and we've just developed we're actually into our second program working with Turn on refugee entrepreneurship.
You talked there about the importance of physical retail in terms of the scoop shops and how you were able to drive impact with those. In terms of circularity and the retail landscape, we know that charity shops play a huge role. What is eBay doing to support charity shops, and what impact is it having?
At the heart of eBay for Charities is supporting high street charities to come onto the platform. Many widely known charities that you would know, that you would see on the high street, as well as smaller charities are on eBay. We have about 1,900 charities currently selling on the platform, I believe, and they raised about 38 million, I think it was, last year. So we have a similar program to the one I mentioned for eBay for Change. It's all about supporting those charities to optimize the platform and improve their skills and knowledge. It's called Charity Connect. We've run it 3 or 4 times now with 300 plus charities, and we're seeing that huge growth from that. I know we had one charity that grew 1,000% by the end of the program. And we know, for example, in the fashion space, charity retail is at the heart of that pre-loved fashion sector, and so we want to do more and more to try and support charities to grow and get their inventory onto the platform.
Thank you so much for joining us, Chris, and sharing the brilliant work that both eBay and Ben & Jerry's are doing. If you've been watching this live, do come and have your say at the Ethical Hour Twitter chat happening now using #EthicalHour. And you can share your expertise in our retail consultation, which is open now. Find out more by visiting ethicalhour.com.